You know you've got a really long video coming when I get out the wine. It's actually really good too. I've been kind of in the mood for wine, so I'm glad I got this video out tonight or today or whatever. But today we are talking about Kings Island, not Cedar Point, but it is another beer in a theme park. Even though, once again, keeping with tradition, I'm not drinking beer, I'm drinking wine. We're going to talk about every facet of Kings Island, everything you could possibly need to know about it. We have it all here. However, I mean, I've done my absolute best to think about every possible thing that you may need to know, but there still may be other details that you care about and that you would feel like you would like to hear me talk about or show you specifically. If those things come up, please leave them down in the comments. I want to hear from you guys down there what you need to know. If there's other things, I mean, it's so easy to miss something. So please let me know down below if there's something else you need. But like I said, this is going to be a really long video. I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. Grab a glass of wine and a snack and let's go. Before we get started, please press that subscribe button and that like button. Pressing that like button in particular helps so many more people find this video, find this channel, and find some answers that they need to help plan their Cedar Point trips or Kings Island trips, as the case may be with this one. Also, it helps more people to actually kind of join this community and talk and hang out and discuss things about Cedar Point. So down in the comments, go ahead and do that if you guys want to. Like I said, please also tell me what you need to know. If there's something else you need to know, I'm more than happy to answer it for you as fast as I possibly can. Also, I'll be going to Kings Island this coming year. I do it every year, and you can see old videos already about what I have done, the things that I've tested out this last year for your Kings Island trip. You can see several of those videos in the link that I will have up here or down in the description. Please go check those out, but there will also be new ones for 2023. All the new rides, all the new experiences that there could possibly be at Kings Island. I will cover them all so that you guys have an idea of exactly what you're coming into when you come to Kings Island. Because here on this channel, we do the theme parks so that you don't have to, but you'll want to anyways. So for those of you who may not be in the know, Kings Island is a fantastic theme park in kind of central Ohio. It's a great place. It is one of my favorite places to go visit. It's actually kind of modeled after Disney World. If you look at kind of the way the map is actually laid out, it's very much like Disney World. Most theme parks that you go to will have a very haphazard layout about them. But not Kings Island, not Kings Dominion. Those are very specific with kind of a spoken wheel system that's much more similar to the way Disney was laid out. And if you look at the time that they were made, it's very similar. Disneyland was made in the 1950s. Disney World was made in 1971, and Paramount's, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, those were made in 1972. At least Kings Island was made in 1972. They were very much heavily influenced by Disney World, and were created in such a way where they could add on things a little bit easier. We're going to get into that a little bit more later on in this video, but it was at one point, I did already say Paramount's Kings Island, it was at one point sold to Paramount. At that point, it became much more of an IP park, a place with a lot of different movie IP all around it. And then it was sold to Cedar Fair after Paramount kind of got out of the theme park business. It has 11 coasters, not including kids coasters, which even as an adult, I would recommend riding the 2 kids coasters that adults can ride. You can't ride I guess you can with a kid, ride the Great Pumpkin Coaster, but you can't ride all of, as a single adult, you can't ride it, and I don't think you'd really want to anyway. And there are also multiple flat rides, although not quite as many as Cedar Point has. When you get there, it actually feels a little bit like it's a lot easier to ride all the rides, and we'll get into that also. Like I said, the layout was heavily inspired by Disney World, Disneyland. Disneyland was already made, but very similar type of a look to it. You come down kind of a main street that's called International Street, and then you go to a big circle that takes you around the Eiffel Tower. And the Eiffel Tower is the weenie of it. Weenie, for those not into the theming stuff, that is a term that actually Walt Disney phrased, or that Walt Disney coined, that was kind of meant to be the main thing at the park. So of course at Disney you have the castle at Paramount's Kings Island, or now just Kings Island. It is the Eiffel Tower. So that Eiffel Tower kind of grounds you, but then you have ways to cut through from the Eiffel Tower to different rides on different sides, or you can walk all the way around the perimeter of the park. And I do have a walkthrough on YouTube. You can go check that out if you would like to get your bearings on the way that Kings Island actually works. It'll give you a bit more of an idea of exactly where you are and what you're seeing around you while you're walking around the park. I spent like an hour and a half just walking around the park, and that's all it was. It's a heavily copyrighted video. So I don't make any money off of it, but it's definitely fun to do. Speaking of not making any money off of videos, if you would like to go check out my Patreon, you're more than welcome to do that. If you enjoy, you know, these tips and tricks and stuff like that, if it's helpful. Of course, there is no pressure whatsoever to do that. Just if you would like to be a part of the channel in that way, there's also additional content that you can find on there. Like I said, Kings Island was at one point an IP park. Therefore, there was a lot of theming that was in that park. You come in, you have International Street, go left, you have Action Zone, you also have Oktoberfest over there. Coming soon, over in that same area, you have Adventure Port. That's coming in 2023, along with 2 new flat rides and a larger area kind of to eat. You also have the Oktoberfest area and then the Coney Mall. That is a very large area where it kind of goes all the way around the side / back area. There's also the, I forget what it's called right now. It's like the alien area of the park that's directly off of the side of Coney Mall. You also have Rivertown, and you have Planet Snoopy at Kings Island. There are lots of different rides at Kings Island, as you would expect. And Kings Island has basically, I'm just going to break it down into 4 different types of rides that you can have. And of course, well, 2 of them are kind of my own designation for the same thing. So the kids rides, you have flat rides, you have medium queue coasters, and then you also have huge queue coasters. So your medium queue coasters are going to be more of your fillers. They're never going to get massive lines. You know, waiting 30 minutes is waiting too long for them. But you also have the huge queue coasters where waiting 30 minutes for it is a steal at that point. That's an awesome ride. So you want to be able to kind of differentiate between them for the purposes of planning. And so basically, kids rides would be the Great Pumpkin Coaster, Flying Ace Aerial Chase, Woodstock Express, and then of course anything else that would be the kids rides. They have the like people mover basically kind of thing. It's like a little thing that goes all the way around the top of the kids area. You have several of the slow moving like kids rides that they can do. And actually the kids area is a massive area of Kings Island, where like Cedar Point has 3 different kids areas. At Kings Island you only have 1, and it is just massive. It takes up like a quarter of the park. So definitely for kids, it's a great place to go hang out. And then you also have, of course, flat rides. Flat rides would be the rides like the bumper cars or the carousel or Monster. There are several different flat rides. Most of them exist along the Coney Mall. And then you also have, of course, your medium queue coasters. Those are the kind of, like I said, the filler coasters. So Adventure Express, Banshee, even though I wouldn't say Banshee is like a filler ride, I would say it functions as a filler ride. It has 3 different trains on most days, and usually I've never experienced a massive line on Banshee. I think it's just because ride ops go through it so quickly, so you're really able to get onto it very, very fast. So I still consider that one a medium queue coaster. Maybe I'll be proven wrong this next year, I don't know. And then of course the Racer, the Bat, and the Invertigo. The huge queue coasters are Orion, Mystic Timbers, Flight of Fear, Diamondback, the Beast, and Backlot Stunt Coaster. Now, Backlot's where kind of it's a departure from the norm with all of those, because Backlot Stunt Coaster, it's not really that great of a ride, but unlike, I guess, Banshee, it is one that's going to take a lot longer to get through. It's just not an easy ride to get onto, and for them to load and unload, it takes a long time. You don't have as many people in, like I think each train only has maybe 4 cars in it, something like that. You don't have a ton of people that can ride it at one time. It's a ride that takes a while. So you have to really plan your day to do that. So even though it would kind of be a medium queue coaster as far as that like filler attraction, it's one that you really need to prioritize if you really want to ride it. So, keeping those 2 designations in mind, I have kind of a fantasy schedule that I would say it works pretty well for Kings Island. And that's basically, if you can get in for early park entry, come in for early park entry. That's only a half hour. So if you can't get in, you're not really losing a ton, but a lot of times you can get 2 rides in during that half hour, and then ride those 2 as quickly as you possibly can. Sometimes you only get 1 done anyway before you're like maybe at the very, very end of that early park entry time. And but you want to ride the biggest rides for that. So usually I end up doing Orion, and I end up doing 1 other of the bigger coasters. As the park opens, you hit 1 more. Like I said, sometimes I'm already at the end of that by the time my first coaster is done. So then you just ride something that's a little bit smaller and get in on that right away. But if you can hit 1 more bigger one, then you're on your 3rd large queue coaster. Then you can hit your filler coasters as soon as that's done. Or if you can't go for early park entry, maybe just hit your filler coasters from the very beginning when you get to the park. At the end of the day, I've never had a day at Kings Island where, even with like Halloween weekends and all that kind of stuff, I've never had a day when I found it almost impossible to ride a lot of rides. I was able to ride most of them. Now, Winterfest is a little bit different, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, usually I don't have any problem getting into those rides quickly because usually you have fewer people at the park. Also, you have less area that you have to travel in comparison to Cedar Point. You spend a lot of time walking at Cedar Point. At Kings Island, you don't have to spend as much time walking. You still may do as many steps, but you won't have to spend as much time walking from roller coaster to roller coaster because they're pretty close to each other. And you have those little lanes that cut through the middle of the park to make it easier for you to get from one side to the other. At the end of the day, hit whatever your major rides are that you haven't hit yet. That's usually the way that I end up doing it. It's 3 big rides at the very beginning of the day, and then 4 middle rides in the middle of the day, and then like 3 or 4 rides at the very end of the day that I ride. So then I'm able to hit everything, and even if it rains, I've still often been able to hit everything. You can see that happen right up here also, or down in the description, wherever I end up placing it. Now, there are shows at Kings Island. Shows may trip you up a little bit more. If I'm trying to see shows, I always know that I'm gonna have to sacrifice a ride for me to do that. I'm still often able to ride most of the rides at Kings Island, but there are times when I choose the shows over the rides. At Kings Island, there are several different shows. You have the international stage in the main front of the park, kind of at the very back of where all the fountains are when you first come in. You have the stunt show, which I always really love. I love watching people skate and doing the the bouncing, I guess, jumping. I'm not sure what they would call it, but there's like trapeze performers. I love it. I always think it's really fun to watch, and really fun just to see how these people maneuver their bodies in that way. Could not be me. There's also fireworks often at the end of the night. This last year they had a half fireworks, half drone show, so they couldn't use fireworks on one side of the Eiffel Tower, so instead for the 50th celebration, they did drones on that side, and then they did fireworks on the other. Love it. It was so much fun. And then they also have the German house, where inside Fest House, there's all kinds of different shows. This last year, they did like a Back to the 70s show. That was very fun also. And then, of course, your kind of traveling shows around the park, where you have just a group of people like on a trolley that will show up by you, and they'll just start singing. And they do have specific stops that they make throughout the day. That's always fun. Also, there, of course, are kids shows also with the Snoopy characters. Always fun, especially for people with families. I would say this has been a change, but in the past, Kings Island has had some of the best performances. However, I think that's kind of changed over the last couple of years. When I compare Kings Island to Cedar Point's shows, I would say that Cedar Point has the best shows. I would say that Kings Island has more of the best ride operators, or just being able to get onto the rides. I'm not sure that that has to do with the ride ops specifically, or if it has more to do with just you have a few fewer people at Kings Island than you have at Cedar Point, and so you have a few fewer lines that you would have at Kings Island than you would have at Cedar Point, which makes for a better experience at Kings Island. But of course, just to me, it's a very good experience in comparison to that of Cedar Point. Again, though, shows not quite so great. Kings Island has lots of different places for food. However, I would say that most of the food that they have is pretty standard, with the exception of one thing, maybe two. So they have Coney Barbecue, they have Enrique's, which is kind of like a Chipotle type of a restaurant. They have Fest House, which includes Panda, and kind of more of a nondescript area to eat, where it's just kind of like the food they serve at the park, like, you know, hamburgers and fried chicken and stuff like that. They have the Jukebox Diner, they have La Rosa's Pizza, Miami River Brew House, Skyline Chili, and the Mercado. I don't know what the Mercado is going to be, because that is coming in 2023. However, I can talk about the other ones. I would say, again, most of them are pretty mid. It's just kind of normal theme park fare. However, I would say I was pleasantly surprised by Enrique's this last year. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was definitely a step up from what they've had there in the past. Also, I always love Miami River Brew House, and my favorite tip for Miami River Brew House is to go eat at the bar. If you're 21 or over, go eat at the bar. You can get food served to you there. You can even use your meal plan to eat there. They do have much more creative meals there, and you can also get a drink while you're sitting there at the bar. Also, the bartenders are super nice and very friendly. I really enjoyed my time there. Even the people around, it's a different feeling at Kings Island than it is at Cedar Point, and I would say it's a friendlier feeling. It's almost like going to, you know, Fort Wayne when you've lived in New York. People are friendlier to you. It's kind of a similar way of feeling. It feels like it's a whole bunch of locals who are in the park, and they hang out there frequently, and they say hi to people, and that is definitely something that's definitely fun. It feels like more of a locals park, and that is something that I think gives it its own distinct flavor and fun when you go to Kings Island. Of course, then they also have a few different snacks, from Cinnabon to Auntie Anne's, things like that. Most of those are found on International Street. There are also a few at the very back of the park, where basically close to where Miami River Brew House is. There are a few snacky places back there also, and a few snacky places in the kids area, because of course what kid doesn't need some snacks? Also, there are a few more, like I already said, some like more nondescript places to eat that basically just have hot dogs and hamburgers, and like sometimes their names are very, very generic, like hamburgers, like that kind of a thing. So it's a good place to eat though if you're really hungry in a pinch. But of course, I would always recommend eating at someplace more creative rather than someplace really, really simple. But if you're really hungry, sometimes that'll do. Or if you have kids, sometimes that's just all your kid will eat and it's worthwhile.
This is a pretty full house. This drink is delicious.
Of course, what video of mine would be complete if I didn't talk about drinks that you could find at Kings Island? I have 3 different places I like to drink at Kings Island: Miami River Brew House, Fest House, or the back of Enrique's. And it does have a name, I just can't remember what it's called. So those are the 3 options. I would really recommend all of them. Of course, like I've already mentioned, I would recommend the Miami River Brew House the most because it's really fun. But Fest House is also really fun. If you've already had something to eat, you're watching a show, and you grab a beer at the back while you're watching the show, then you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You don't have to, leave the premises and stop watching the show to go order your beer. So that's always a fun place too. But they don't have anything really creative in there. Now, I have seen them open a few other places. At Winterfest this last year, they opened up another bar. And of course, sometimes they'll just randomly pop up at different places, or you'll see some carts. So I'm not saying this is an exhaustive list, but those are my 3 favorites. At Kings Island, there are some festivals and events, but I would say from what I've seen, there's fewer of them, or at least they have less of a pronounced part of the DNA of Kings Island versus the DNA of Cedar Point. At Cedar Point, you have lots of different events, from like food trucks to, of course, the Frontier Festival and all that kind of stuff. At Kings Island, you don't really have those, but the biggest things that really make Kings Island what makes them Kings Island is the seasonal activities. So it sounds like I'm saying like I'm talking in circles at this point, but I'm not. So they do have a summer festival sometimes. That would be like for the 50th celebration. I'm not sure if that always happens or not. Last year they did have that, and they had a fireworks show with that. But they have Halloweenends, which is huge, and they also have Winterfest. Their Halloweenends has won awards. Their Halloweenends has been one of a very revered part of Kings Island for a very, very long time. Also, Winterfest is a massive part of Kings Island's DNA, and it's something, again, that I would say really sets it apart from, Cedar Point. Cedar Point doesn't have a Winterfest at all. It's too surrounded by water. It would be way too cold. It's impossible for them to do it, or at least so the saying says. But with Kings Island, that's a massive part of what they do. They love their Winterfest programming, and I love it too. It's very, very fun. But let's start with at the beginning with Halloweenends. So with Halloweenends, or Haunt as they call it at Kings Island, Haunt is very fun. It is of course, very similar to what Cedar Point has with their, or most theme parks even have with their like Halloween theming and programming. They have a slew of different shows that were really fun, and then some very fun themed experiences of walking through buildings. One of them is even an old stage that they turned into, it was an indoor stage that they've now turned into a big area. They also have a big ride that was like, I forget what, Tomb Raider, I think it was a Tomb Raider ride, and they had that open so you can see the whole inside. It was a massive, huge building, where I think they would have had a big screen at one point and some seats where you would have watched a show or ridden a ride or something. I'm not even sure what it was. Tell me down in the comments if you know what the Tomb Raider ride would have been like or was like more. Anyway, it was a blast. It was really fun to see the insides of those, and the Halloween stuff was very, very good. Winterfest I have done for 2 years now, because I started 2 years ago in the winter when I bought my pass that could get me to everywhere. And that was a blast when I did that. I really love Winterfest for multiple reasons, but of course the kids' rides are so much fun. You have 3 different rides there. You're walking around the winter. You're already missing the theme park season. So just having that opportunity to just hang out outside riding rides was a blast one way or another. You're all bundled up. They have some nice warm bathrooms though. And then of course they have like hot chocolate, and you can make cookies with Mrs. Claus, and I wouldn't recommend all of those things, but they're just a lot of options. You can go ice skating. There's so much that you can do for Winterfest, and especially when you're already out celebrating Christmas, it is a blast of a place to go with your family. They always have a parade. There's so much there. And then they also have some really good improv too. Definitely a fun thing to go do, especially when you're already missing being able to go to Cedar Point to ride rides, and you could actually get a few rides done. Now they don't have all of them open, but the last couple of years they've had Mystic Timbers, and they had Flight of Fear. In the wintertime they call that Flight of Cheer though. Now, I don't know if I've convinced you to go to Kings Island or not. If you're on this video, chances are you were already convinced to go to Kings Island. So I think my job was pretty easy on that. If you're trying to get to Kings Island though, because you were convinced, then here's what you need to know for how to get to Kings Island. Of course, it's always going to be a car-based place. Kings Island doesn't really even exist in a smaller city or even in a city. It's not like within walking distance, anything like that. Even Cedar Point would be a bit more like that. Like you could walk through gridded streets from their train stations, stuff like that, if you really wanted to. But that's not really an option here. You're way suburban when you go. Like I said, Kings Island sits between Cincinnati and Dayton. It is in a city called Mason, Ohio, but if you wanted to come in, you would need to take transportation to one of those bigger cities. You'd either need to fly, or you would need to drive, or take a Greyhound bus, or whatever you're going to Cincinnati or Dayton, one or the other, and then you would have to take an Uber or some sort of other transportation to get you to Kings Island from there. Or of course you can just drive straight in. That's the other option. When you're doing that, you have to get to Highway 71. Highway 71 it's right off of Kings Island. As a matter of fact, when I was coming back from Florida this last year, we drove right past Kings Island, and we were able to see it all open up, because when you're on Highway 71, it's right off of it, so you can see the whole thing.
Of where your car is, I am between 9 and 11.
Parking would cost $25 or $35 for preferred. I think that's a little bit more expensive than it was this last year, or at least for the year before that. I didn't really pay attention this last year because I had a pass, which is one of the reasons why you should buy a pass, because when you're having to spend $25 to park every time you come to Cedar Point, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, any of those, that adds up really fast if you're planning on doing a couple of trips. So at $25 a pop, it's very expensive, in my estimation anyway, to park at any of the Cedar Fair parks. And that is something that I think you definitely need to take into account. It's going to cost you extra with that. And if you are already doing, 3 times or 2 times at the park, plus you have 2 times of paying $25, so that would be a total of $50 on top of your $40 tickets, then at that point, has a pass already been worthwhile? I think it may have. So the summer pass already costs $109. Gold is $140. Platinum is $280. Prestige is $350, and Prestige Plus is $450. So when you're spending for a single day $40, and you've spent that twice, that's $80. Plus you had to park, so that's $50 on top for 2 different days, so $50 total. Now you're spending $130 anyway, no matter what. You might as well get that gold pass and come one more time after those 2 trips already. You might as well spend it all up front, and then you don't have to worry about it otherwise, unless you're only coming one time and only then for 1 day. There are a couple of different tickets or passes that you can buy though. Let's say you do only want to come for 1 day. If you want to come for 1 day, an all-day pass will cost you at least $40. If you want to come only after 4, which I think is a new offering, it will cost you $34.99 to do that. If you want to instead buy a pass and cut your losses, which I really recommend, the summer pass, at least buy the summer pass, because the summer pass is $109. It won't get you into Halloween's, it won't get you into Winterfest, and it won't get you to any other parks, but it will get you in a couple times during the summer, and that's, of course, obviously even cheaper. So if you're coming for 2 days at $80 plus your parking for $25, $50, you've way overspent that for 2 days. You might as well get that summer pass at least, and that'll get you in several times. I don't think it includes any early entry, nothing like that. Gold does not include any early entry anymore either, but it will get you into the park all season long, including Winterfest and including Halloween's. Platinum Pass will include everything for Kings Island except for the pass perks that you're gonna get with Prestige. So you don't get tents, and you don't get one Fastlane each day that you come in for one individual ride. You don't get any of that, but you will get to be in the park for all of those. Plus, with Platinum Pass, it also gives you the ability to go to every single park in the Cedar Fair chain, which I'm going to put up right here so you can see all of them. There's all kinds of different parks that Cedar Point owns or Cedar Fair owns, where you could go visit if you would like to. The Prestige Pass, like I already alluded to, is going to include some tents where you can go and relax. You can go take a nap, settle down. There's also some complimentary snacks and drinks that you can have in there. And it's also going to include a complimentary fast lane for each day that you come in. So all you have to do is go up to the front. They'll give you a fast lane for each person in your party, as long as you all have Prestige. And then you can use that on one specific ride throughout the day to kind of help you save a little bit of time. If there's, a show you want to see, or if there's just one ride that has a crazy line, you can kind of help that, have that help you jumpstart your day during the day there at Kings Island. Now, the problem with Prestige is that it doesn't include going to visit any of the other parks unless you get Prestige Plus. Prestige Plus, you'll see down at the bottom of it, there's this little red thing down at the bottom that says you have to click here if you want to go visit all the other parks with Prestige. So in order to get Prestige Plus, you have to spend that $450 instead of $350. I did buy the Prestige Pass, but I would recommend that you buy the Platinum Pass instead because of that. I also just think Prestige is a much better deal. $280, you can visit every single park in the chain, including during the winter, as much as you would like. There's very few limits with it. I think it's definitely worthwhile. So the next question I would ask you is, how many days can you come? If we've already talked about this a little bit in the discussion of what pass you should get. But with 2 days, you should definitely buy a gold pass if you can come for 2 days. If you can only come for one, then buy the all-day ticket. But I think it's worthwhile to get a pass, just come back another time if you can find that weekend or something that you can spend at Cedar Point or Kings Island or wherever you're going. If you would like to go visit another park, then Platinum is your man. You need to go get that Platinum pass. That'll give you what you need. You don't need a tent and you don't need an extra fast lane if you really don't want it. If you really want it, go for it. You know, that's fine, but I don't think most people need it. So I do think that the Platinum Pass is much cheaper and you don't need that extra fast lane for it at Kings Island. Now, my 2 cents on the whole thing is always choose more days at a time rather than more trips throughout your year. It's just going to give you, if you can only take one trip, I would definitely recommend, taking an extra day off of work and just spending more time there because then you're going to feel like you can do everything. I guess maybe I'm a bit of a completionist in that way, and I want to make sure that I can say I rode everything there by the end of the summer. So that's one thing. Also, it's a little bit less gas, although you would also have to get a hotel in that case, and that could be the trade-off for you. The one caveat that I would have, and this goes into how many trips now, is if you live close enough to make multiple trips and you only need to take a day, to make that trip, then maybe it's worthwhile to, make more trips rather than more days. So let's say, you live at most 3 hours away, something like that, which is what I do. Then you could probably drive in early on in the morning and still get home by, 2 a.m. or something like that. And then you didn't have to buy a hotel. In that case, probably that's worthwhile. Otherwise, you probably just want to be there and not have to put your cars through the wear and tear of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth throughout the years. And one thing I will say for that method, for more trips method, is the more trips you have equals more fun spread throughout the year, which I definitely think is very fun. Hotels, they do have hotels on the property. They have Great Wolf Lodge and they have Camp Cedar. Great Wolf Lodge is actually on property. It takes, I think I timed it this last year, I think it was 14 minutes overall. Now, of course, they also have chains around Hampton Inn, True, Best Western, Comfort Suites, and those are all the actual considered Cedar Point hotels, but there are way more all around. It's in a larger city, so you're gonna spend a lot less money on hotels. At Kings Island, a cheap hotel would be like $70, and you're not gonna have to worry about bed bugs at a hotel for $70 at Kings Island. Because you're in such a large city area, there's all kinds of hotels all around it. However, at Cedar Point, if you find a hotel for $70, run the other direction. When a cheap hotel at Cedar Point is going to be $120 or $140 or something like that. You don't spend cheap on hotels at Cedar Point because you have so few hotels that you can use. And that is kind of part of the problem with it. It does cost a lot more money to get hotels at Cedar Point than it does at Kings Island. Kings Island, like I said, you have a lot more hotels, so you have a lot more options, and you can go 20 minutes away and there's still going to be a slew of a whole bunch more hotels that in that 20-minute radius. So you have tons of competition. You can choose whatever you think is best, but there are kind of a couple of hotels that are officially Cedar Point, like in the Cedar Point area. There also are more different types of things, especially when it comes to Airbnbs. I've never gone to check out any Airbnbs. You can check out hotels up here or down here. Again, all over my site, there's all kinds of different Kings Island hotels that you can see me review. But around Kings Island, there would be a lot of Airbnbs. Like I said, I've never gone to visit them. If you would like to see me go visit them, I definitely would be willing to go do that. Just let me know down in the comments if that is something you are interested in. It is so hot. It's like this time of year has gone from being very, very cold to being like extremely hot in just like a day. Like literally 2 days ago it was sleeting and I am baking, and here I don't have my air conditioning on because I didn't think I'd need it and my heater hasn't gone on at all, but I am dying. kept unbuttoning my shirt, which none of that's unusual for this channel at all. But man, I'm like sweating. I feel like I've had a day at the theme park already. We'll still be classy bitches, okay? So around the area, there are a lot of different things. You have the Arc experience. You have tons of different types of shopping. As a matter of fact, on my way down towards Cincinnati over the winter to go to the Arc experience, I saw like a massive mall down there. You also go through downtown, and there was all kinds of stuff down there. Lots of vibrancy. It looked like it would be so much fun. I have no idea what all is there. I drive right through Dayton on my way to it. So those would all be places that I think would be fun to go visit, but I haven't gone to visit those specifically. I did get to go see the Arc experience. Definitely recommend. The Traders Village, though, on your way into Kings Island, you could also go check that out. And you could go check out the casino, which would be one other thing that's right there by Traders Village. So I've wanted to go check those out, but I haven't. Let me know what things you would like to see me go visit at Kings Island. I'd love to hear from you guys what things would be the best idea to go see. Especially if you're local and if you know the area pretty well, I'd love to hear from you guys. Now, Fastlane is one of our very last facets for Kings Island. I have actually never gone to get a Fastlane. I would like to sometime. Again, that kind of comes down to, though, I've never had trouble riding all the rides that I would like to ride at Kings Island. Now, there are two reasons for that. There are fewer coasters, and there's also less room in the park where you have to walk from place to place. Not to mention, you can cut through the middle, and it makes it a lot easier rather than, like at Cedar Point, having to only walk the perimeter of the park. So all of those things, add to what you can and cannot do at Kings Island, and what makes it a lot easier for you. However, Fastlane at Kings Island is substantially cheaper at $80. I don't even think they have a Fastlane Plus. I didn't see that at all. Or $799 for all year long. So how many times do you go would be the question I would have to ask you for whether it would be worthwhile or not. I save your money. I don't think you need to. I don't think it's that important, but if it is that important to you, then go for it. So, are there other questions that you have about Kings Island? I would love to hear from you guys down below. If you have some questions for me, if there's something that I can answer, or even if you just want to say hi down in the comments, I'm here for it. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys down there. And every time that you comment or you like or you share this video with someone to give them a little bit more of an idea of what's going on, you both help other people and you help the algorithm to give this video out to more people. You help out the channel massively, and I would love it if you do that kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching today. I'm sorry I had to take off my shirt again. I'm obviously just wrecked about it. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have had a great winter, and I'm so excited to see you guys all at the parks this next year. Let me know which park is your first one that you have planned to go visit, if you have one that is planned to go visit yet. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's go! We must finish.